So as I said, my name is Mel White. I'm a program trainer at Youth Opportunities, and I also coordinate the Community 360 element of our organisation. And that's the wraparound support for you as parents and caregivers, and also support and development for teachers and staff from the schools where your young people are working through the program. I'm an experienced high school teacher, and I've also worked in teacher development over the years in the Department of Education. And one of the most important hats that I wear is as a parent of teenagers and young adults. So I'm really familiar with the space that you are navigating as a parent of a teenager. Emma, I'll hand over to you for your introduction.
Thanks, Mel. Hi, everyone. It's really lovely to have you joining us in this webinar tonight. So I am a program trainer at Youth Opportunities as well. And I also work in the space where we offer some students who might be at higher risk some prosper coaching after they graduate Youth Opportunities. And we stay connected with them for a couple of terms after their graduation if they choose to opt into that opportunity. My background is I have a master's in counselling and psychotherapy, and I am really passionate about working with young people and helping them to be the best versions of themselves. I too am also a parent of teenage girls, so I am right in the thick of those teenage years, and I'm sure you are as well. And so I know exactly what you are trying to navigate through, and seeing this program and the benefits this program has had on young people, I'm sure that your young people will get the best out of it as well.
Thanks, Emma. Okay, let's get stuck into it. So who are we? To set the scene, Youth Opportunities equips young people with the lifelong skills, habits and attitudes that sees them thrive in education, work and also life in general. So for more than 25 years, we've worked alongside our education partners to support over 16,000 young Australians who, through our personal leadership programs and wraparound services, are now taking control of their lives and contributing positively to their communities. The Marshman Foundation, named after our founder, Peter Marshman, is the independent research, design and development arm of our organisation. Personal leadership means taking positive control and responsibility of your life to direct yourself towards who you want to be and how you want to live. And it's you at your best. The program enables young people to decide what success looks like to them, to set goals, to think and communicate positive messages, and to choose growth over security. Personal leadership equips young people with the 21st century skills needed for their future and the optimism and resilience to deal with whatever life throws their way. So we just want to capture your thinking about your young person. This is an anonymous survey, and this represents some of the goals that the young people indicate they want to achieve throughout the program, right from when they apply. So what would be great is if you have a smartphone handy right now, you can use that QR code to jump on and complete that survey question. So what do you think is the main goal your young person would like to work on in the program? If you don't have a smartphone at the ready, you can certainly answer this in the chat as well, and Emma and I will monitor responses in there. So right now, we're just using that QR code. Thank you. Some of you have kicked us off. So it'll just be interesting to see, as a group of parents and caregivers, the types of goals we think our young people are really going for. Yeah, so it looks like confidence.
And future direction. Thanks, Rachel.
And as trainers of the program, Emma and I see a whole range of goals, but this is not surprising to us. Confidence, of course, can mean many different things and many different scenarios for young people. You might see a really confident side of your young person, but when they're potentially at school or in other environments outside of school, their confidence can be quite limited. So we really enjoy supporting them to to improve this skill. Fantastic, thank you. So we've got a range of responses there. And you can imagine too that these goals and these themes, I guess, are very interrelated. So when we've got improved confidence, it can actually improve our relationships, as an example. When we've got improved confidence, we can communicate better. We can be confident to go toward our future direction as well. Great, so that's a really interesting snapshot and not surprising.
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, a lot of the students we work with, absolutely confidence is high on their agenda, wanting to improve that. Motivation, surprisingly, sometimes motivation at school so they can get their assignments done and, you know, ask the teachers for help and things like that.
Absolutely. So let's jump on to another question now. So stay on Slido and the question should come up automatically for you. This one is you answering in 1 to 2 words. So tell us, what is the main challenge you're experiencing when supporting your young person? So that's a really broad question, but I think just go with your first gut instinct about the challenge you have in really wanting to support your young person, but it becomes a challenge when you do so. What are the things that you experience? Thank you. And of course, the most common themes will come up larger in this word, or thank you, so understanding their point of view. That's really tough, a really tough one. Our brains are very different, adults versus teenagers. Engagement seems to be a theme there.
Yeah, not listening. That's a big one.
Or at least they appear to not listen. Sometimes they surprise us.
And there's a couple in the chat as well, communication and coping with defiance. And lack of responsiveness, yeah.
Right, so this is a chance to get a sense of the fact that you're not alone. You've probably got some really similar challenges as you navigate this really important role that you have as a parent. They're allowing us to help. That can be a really tough one. And positive talking, so related to communication as well. Okay.
Yeah, nice even spread there of responses.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Feel free to keep typing in there. That survey will stay open. Getting out of bed.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm sure is really common. It has a lot to do with the teenage brain.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for responding to that. Hopefully that gives you a sense of who's in the room and how we're feeling about parenting our beautiful teenagers.
All right, guys, so I'm going just to take you on a bit of an overview of what the students are going to be learning through the program. So the Personal Leadership Program provides 30 tools that we deliver to them over the 8 weeks that we're working with them. And it's based on a framework of define, discover, and decide. Students first define their success and happiness and what they want their life to look like and what they're aiming towards, and more importantly, who they want to be. This is underpinned, well, our program is underpinned by a range of psychological theories, which I'll share details about with you later. Students will receive a manual and a folio, and that's where they document all their learning. And then they have a graduation at the end, which hopefully you'll all be invited to as well. And they also receive 20 SACE points for completing the program, which is a huge hit for a lot of students. Each week they're challenged to take their learning out into the world. And some tools are straightforward as using a weekly planner or a to-do list, whereas others might be a little bit deeper, such as flipping negative self-talk into positive self-talk, or reflecting on whether students are living their life as a hero, a victim, or a villain. Students are challenged each week to decide to take action towards their goals. And they walk away each week as well with a group challenge and individual challenges that are going to help them to achieve their goals that they've personally set for themselves. A powerful way that we individualise the program is we have one-on-one coaching with the students, and they are with the experienced trainers that work with the students. And this allows them to set some goals, create some challenges to help them achieve those goals, and then outside of the program, put those challenges into place, and hopefully then they come back the following week and reflect on how well they've been able to put those challenges into place. So the program leads a significant development of enterprise skills, setting them up well in the world of part-time or future work. And there are big benefits to their well-being, resilience, and their leadership. I know that was a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions at this point? If you do, please type them in the chat. And feel free through the night, if anything pops up, to pop a question into the chat if needed. Okay, so here is some data from our last impact report. So we collect data through each program that we do. And the measures from this program is, on this slide, is epoch measurement that we collect. So we know the program works as because we do record this data, and we record it during each program. So our program consistently demonstrates large improvements in both wellbeing and mental health indicators using valid and reliable measures. So this graph shows you the epoch measure of adolescent wellbeing, which measures students' optimism, happiness, engagement, perseverance, and connectedness. And generally in each program, most students will have increased results in each of these from start to end of the program. And we collect the data from the start, middle, and the end of each program, so we can see their progress through the program. And we also use a K10 measure, and K10 measures psychological distress. And we see dramatic improvements, as you can see on this slide, in the risk for young people developing a mental health disorder. So last term, 46%, which is almost half of our students who enter the program at high risk of developing a mental health disorder, finish the program at either medium or low risk. High-risk students are more likely to demonstrate antisocial behaviour, so they have decreased motivation, increased negative self-talk, reduced self-confidence. They might have affected sleep and experience some form of depression or anxiety. And low-risk students are students who are more likely to demonstrate more positive behaviours, display high levels of self-esteem, and present with an optimistic outlook. So what does this all mean? So better emotional wellbeing, including resilience, is a significant indicator of school engagement, positive behaviour, academic performance, employability, and overall general health. Impact is beyond the student. So after doing this program, quite often the school and the wider community will see changes in the young person. So our goal is to contribute towards cultural change within the school, and this has positive flow-on effects out of the larger community. And this slide provides a bit of a snapshot of the program outcomes beyond the data that we've just shared. So these outcomes are consistent across the many years of the program that we've been running it. So have a quick look over some of these outcomes, and it just sort of highlights if your young person gives their best to the program and takes as much away from it as they can, that you could also see some of these improvements and some of these high statistics in your young person as well.
I've noticed a couple of questions in the chat, and we will answer those really soon. Thank you for using that function. But for now, we just want to get back to the learning. So as Emma has shared, students learn almost 30 tools or concepts in the program. And we know how difficult it would be to remember all of them. So we categorize the tools into the 4 big decisions that you can see here on the slide. Students leave the program just practicing these 4 decisions, and the strategies they learned will follow. These decisions are one of the golden threads throughout the whole program. So let me elaborate on the decisions that you see here, starting with decide to be happy, the one on the left. This is not just about approaching life with optimism and putting a smile on your face. It can be a difficult decision, but can change how you live to be happier in the long term. So understanding what as individuals brings us happiness and focusing on these things and making them a priority. That's what this big decision is all about. Decide to goal plan is about planning out your whole future, not just your career, but the kind of person you want to be and how to start practicing now. And of course, young people learn many tools that really guide them toward small or larger goals. Decide to send stars, so star communication. This is the heart of creating a star-filled environment, which is what you're here to hear more about. The quality of your communication and relationships is a huge predictor of success and happiness. So using positive communication through this tool improves confidence, relationships, and communication. This tool was featured in the First Parent newsletter, including a video which demonstrates the symbolism of stars and black holes. Stars being positive communication and black holes being negative communication. We also included a link to the video when you registered for the webinar. So if you didn't get a chance to watch it, you can certainly access it afterwards. We're going to go deeper into this tool soon. And finally, decide to grow, the 4th big decision. This is about stepping out of your comfort zone and trying new things that encourage us to be the best version of ourselves. So a really important big decision for our young people that we guide them with throughout the program. So let's get into these decisions a little bit deeper so that you really understand why they are the huge underpinnings of the program. So our research and development arm, the Marshman Foundation, developed a program logic and theory of change, which included these psychological underpinnings. We've got experts in quality to keep up with these underpinnings based on science and research. So I'm going to share with you what each of the 4 big decisions is connected to. So first of all, the one that you see there, and you can see the little symbols, that one's a smiley face, of course, is decide to be happy. And this draws on positive psychology. So examples in the program include tools to help young people using affirmations. So identifying your positive attributes and verbalizing them improves well-being and really helps them with any possible negative self-talk. Another tool in relation to decide to be happy is the use of visualizations. So using what psychologists call the best possible self, we improve optimism via a simple visualization exercise. And it actually gets them thinking about what they want to be and who they want to be in 10 years. And then think about, well, what do they need to do in 5 years' time to make that happen? And what do they absolutely need to do now to be able to achieve that goal? It's a really powerful strategy. And finally, another couple of examples, acts of kindness and gratitude. Now, these are tools that I'm sure you have heard about, and there's a lot of research to indicate the positive impact on people's well-being. So these heighten one's sense of fortune and can clinically reduce depression as strategies. So going deeper into decide to goal plan, it draws on goal planning theory. So from the discipline of motivation, this suite of tools helps young people to set specific and challenging goals that Emma talked about that are proven to improve performance. Together with appropriate feedback from trainers, this leads to raised aspirations, better organisation skills, and a roadmap for achievement, no matter what it is they're wanting to achieve. Sending stars, which we've spoken about a little bit, draws on social learning theory. So communication tools are effective in improving relationships and self-image through the normal reciprocity. So in other words, what you give when you're communicating, you generally get back. We'll go deeper into this soon in regard to this key tool behind this big decision. Students also learn to negotiate win-win conflict resolution solutions via specific tools and techniques. So really learning about effective communication that will have them having positive outcomes for themselves and others. And finally, decide to grow. It draws on a combination of personality theory, motivational theory, and cognitive behaviour theory. Combining these approaches, our trainers help young people to take responsibility for their own outcomes, breaking the cycle of negative self-belief and using techniques of graded exposure to increasingly step out their comfort zone. They start to see their future differently and the world sees them more positively. So that gives you a bit more behind the big decisions and why we really hang our hat on these decisions as one of the golden threads throughout the program. The second golden thread of the program is locus of control, which can be referred to as agency or self-determination, and we call it personal leadership. So this topic was actually featured in the parent newsletter this week that you hopefully received via email. Julian B. Rotter in 1954 established locus of control as the degree to which people believe that they have control over the outcome of events in their lives, as opposed to external forces beyond their control. So when a young person has agency and self-determination, they realise things don't just happen to them, they can actually make things happen, i.e. personal leadership. This shifts students' perspective to a more internal locus of control and leads to students being more solution-focused, persistent and effortful. This is shown to predict better grades, success and happiness. And I think as parents, an internal locus of control of what you would observe is that they really own their choices and behaviour. And there's a real maturity to an internal locus of control. So you might be thinking about your young person and times when they've leaned toward an external locus of control. Let's look at a scenario. You've asked your young person to complete a chore while you're out. They've had half a day to complete it. And when you return, it hasn't been started. Feel free to pop in the chat if that's something you can relate to. A young person with an external locus of control may say things like, I ran out of time. I didn't know you wanted it done today. I didn't understand how. I couldn't find the vacuum cleaner. Why do I have to vacuum when my sister isn't doing anything? You're never happy with how I do it anyway, so why bother? I'm not sure if that sounds familiar. It may. Yes. I can see some emotions coming up.
Yeah.
Some of you think that's quite familiar. It might have been from personal experience as a parent of a teen. So if you look at the qualities of external locus of control on the slide, you're probably seeing the connection to why that person would, that young person would come out with those responses. It's happening to me. I'm not contributing to the consequences of my inaction. So let's have a look at the internal locus of control. So a young person with this locus of control, what we're aiming for, they would own the situation. They might apologise and acknowledge they've lost track of time and explain that they should have just got it done straight away until leaving it to the last minute, and that they'll get it onto it now, or that maybe they'll make an agreement with you about when it will be done. Now, our young people are very capable of that internal locus of control, and the beauty of the program is that we really see that shift, and we really hope that you do too. So something very powerful for you to do is to just be aware of this language that we're using, and that's something that you can potentially discuss. So people who have an internal locus of control attribute consequences to their own action, and people with external locus of control attribute consequences to the situation or to the actions of others. The link between where a person places their locus of control and academic achievement is actually well documented. So those that lean toward an internal locus of control but work through things when situations are out of their control are known as having an adaptive style. And these people have higher self-concept, they work harder, they persist longer, especially in the face of difficulty. Those are the more external locus of control, maybe more at risk for dropping out of further education. Internal locus of control predicts job success, higher achievement in work and career, better stress management and less burnout, increased happiness, reduced risk of mental health issues. Specific interventions, so attributional retraining for young people, can shift their locus of control, and it's a good predictor of academic success. And as I said, that's absolutely what the personal leadership program aims to do. But it can really maximise benefits for our young people when you're involved too, just in understanding these concepts and what we're going for. Young people will make these shifts really gradually, so being really gentle on them as they potentially really turn around what might be quite a habitual external locus of control is really important as a parent. So here's some specific tips, how you can help your young person develop an internal locus of control. So first of all, be clear about expectations and make them achievable and realistic. For your teen to understand there is a cause and effect of their actions, make sure you follow through with consequences. And I'm sure as parents you've heard that bit of advice many times. It's sometimes easy to hear and harder to do. And I know we've all been there. For example, if you have an arrangement with your child that if they complete their set of chores, they can go for a sleepover with a friend. If they don't do it, stick to your word. It's a good lesson to learn, consequences to actions. You're not teaching personal leadership if you let them do it without fulfilling their end of the bargain. Alternatively, try not to introduce a new condition. Oh, you've done those chores, but you fought with your siblings, so you can't go. You need to be prepared to stick to your word. This helps them understand the consequences of their actions, which helps develop their internal locus of control. So it's really worth thinking about in relation to how you can guide them and potentially reduce tension and conflict. Support and encouragement. When young people come across barriers, remind them about when they did well in the past and how it worked in their favour. So using past successes, like you had that falling out with your friend, and even though you were really hurt, you decided to go and mend that relationship. So remind them of what they're capable of and what they have been capable of in the past. This one's probably quite familiar. Don't rescue or make excuses for your young person or your young people. Sometimes we want to make it easier for them. If we continually do this, though, we're not giving them the opportunities to show personal leadership. Ask questions that will get the young person to think through their actions and problem solve. So, for example, I remember you got an A on that science project. What was different from this new project at school? How might you make that work? What happens if you, and potentially give them some ideas or some prompting questions. So avoid just giving them the answers or just one answer. Encourage them to take the lead on their own with your guidance, because they do have the answers in themselves, just as we do as adults. And finally, I might be really stating the obvious here, and I know I am, but be a positive role model. Be conscious of role modeling self-discipline, self-motivation, talking about yourself as a hero and not a victim, and thinking about the self-talk that you have and what you're saying out loud to your family. So really being conscious of that is important as you consider how you're influencing your young person.
All right, so now we're going to do a little bit of an experiment, and I need your help. So hopefully you are up for it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 20 seconds to look at the next slide. And what I want you to do is remember all the blue things that you see. Please don't write them down. Please try and memorize them. And then after the 20 seconds, we're going to have a competition to see who can name the most blue things. So keep them to yourselves until I ask for them. Okay. Are you ready? Time starts now. Oh. So all the blue things. And this is an activity that we run with the students in our program. Okay, time is up. All right. So in the chat box, can you please list me all of the green things that you saw? All the green things in the chat box. I bet you weren't expecting that. Because I only asked you to learn. Oh, we've gotten a response. Yep, great.
Bit of a curveball, isn't it?
I did say look at blue, you're right.
The frog is memorable by the looks of things.
Yep, a letter magnet, half a frog. Yep, yep. All right. Can you name me all the red things that you saw?
Can you hear people racking their brain, drawing on the memory?
We've got a few coming in. No,
Thanks for your
not a
honesty.
chance. Yeah. I can't remember any of the red. Yep. Yep.
Good effort there, Deirdre. A few things.
All right. Finally, I would like you to now pop in the chat box all the blue things that you remember. I'll give you a minute or so. Hopefully this might be a little bit easier. Yeah. There's a few responses coming through.
Loving the emojis.
Yeah. Oh, there's some, yes.
Oh, look at that
blue.
list.
Lots of blue coming
Everyone's
through.
well done.
Wow, you are all, yes, everyone's doing well, very well with the blue.
Absolutely. Great effort.
Well done, everybody. So, why do you think it was so hard to name all the things that were red? Just pop a sentence or two in the chat box.
And in the meantime, we'll put them out of their misery, Em, so they can see
Yeah.
those green things.
So they can tick off what they saw. Yes, as we're only told to look for blue. Yeah, and only concentrating on the one color. Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess, you would say it was so easy to look for blue because that's what we asked you to do. So when you are looking for blue, what weren't you looking for? I think, yeah, you didn't look for the red. You didn't look for anything else. You just looked for the blue. Yeah. Yeah, and didn't look for the other colours. Yeah. So looking for blue is actually an activity that, as I say, we do run with the students. Quite often, if we're in a room that has got a lot of blue items, we might just use the room and they can look around the room and they close their eyes, or we'll do something similar and use this slide. But the message is that we always see what we're looking for. So sometimes if we expect to see poor behaviour because of our past experience with a young person, then it can make it really hard to see positive change. So we work with students to help them improve and become personal leaders. So what we're asking for you as parents is to be on the lookout for this. So look for the blue in your young person, and you're much more likely to maybe to see those positive changes that they're trying to make. So we'd encourage you to look for blue, look for the positives, and maybe, through the leadership program, maybe they are trying to make some changes. So don't sort of hold on to that past experience all the time, and sort of see how they're maybe trying to turn some of those behaviours into more positive behaviours through the personal leadership program.
Thanks for playing along, everyone.
Yeah, and you did a great job. I'm very impressed with what you remember for the blue. Yeah.
So now to that first tool of the program that we've mentioned a couple of times now, stars and black holes. Remembering that decide to send stars is one of those 4 big decisions. So I mentioned a video that was actually featured in the newsletter. It was also featured on the email that you received once you registered for the webinar. So in the chat, it'd be just great to get a sense of who has had a chance to watch Jack's story. If you wouldn't mind just putting a yes or a no in the chat, a Y or an N, that will just give us a sense of.
Oh, great. Yep.
Yeah, great. I noticed some of you have mentioned you haven't received emails, and one of the reasons might be it's sitting in your junk. It's from Community 360 is the email address, but please know that we'll take a note of those that have had challenges, and we'll make sure you get that newsletter. Oh, great! Someone's shared that their son has explained the concept. I love that.
Oh, that's great.
And even better if there's a really great chance that maybe you've been receiving some stars. So let's talk about the concepts, and then we'd love to hear in the chat if you have been noticing some stars. So as mentioned, students learn this tool on day one. It's a communication tool that we build on throughout the program. So star communication is positive communication, which I mentioned earlier, and it's communication that makes us feel good about ourselves. And it also is something that we can send to ourselves. So we can send positive communication, so that internal voice or that self-talk to ourselves, as well, of course, to others. Examples of star communication are things like what we say, so the words that we use, how we say it, the tone of voice. It can be the body language that we use, maybe without even using words. I know you're imagining some body language of our classic teenagers. Doing something kind for someone else is another example of a star. Supporting others, and things like just gestures like holding a door open. So they're all examples of things that make us feel good when we do them, but also other people. The opposite of a star is a black hole, and that's negative communication that reduces how we feel. We can send black holes to ourselves as well as to others. So using symbolism, our self-image aura, and this is something you might remember from the video if you've had a chance, is a visual representation of our self-image. Our self-image is how we see ourselves in relation to others and the world. So on this slide here, you can actually see a bit of an example of this symbolism. The young person on the left has black holes surrounding her aura, indicating she potentially just communicated to someone using a black hole, or someone has sent her a black hole through their communication to her. So you can even see the expression on her face. We use this terminology and symbolism and analogy so that young people and us as adults remember it easily. So there's more chance of building positive communication as a habit. You can see, of course, the young person on the right is looking like he's experienced receiving, or he's just given some star communication. There's a social norm where people tend to give what they get in communication. So a star generally rewards a star, and a black hole usually can repay a black hole. In social psychology, this is described as the law of reciprocity, and it's recognised as a normal part of human behaviour. Other words for it are things like karma or reap what you sow. Young people learning in the program using their locus of control, their internal locus of control, can really change the dynamic of a conversation by focusing on stars only and avoiding what can become a black hole war when that reciprocity happens. So you can imagine if you've got more than one young person in your house, those black hole wars might happen between the siblings, where someone has said something negative and there's some retaliation and things escalate until there's absolutely no winners. So that's just an example. And our young people are really being challenged to change that for themselves, and to really experiment with using stars only. So getting into a little bit more of the detail, there's 3 really easy things to create a star-filled environment. First of all, greetings. So think about how you normally greet your family, your friends, or your colleagues. Often we greet others, how we greet them is a sign of your relationship with them. Greetings acknowledge other people, can break down barriers and build relationships. And many people, especially young people, are reluctant to make the first move when it comes to greeting another person. It's a habit we get them to practice throughout the program. As an example, it might be that they're challenged to greet their teachers for the week. So they have to greet every teacher every lesson. And we've had young people report back that not only has that felt great, not only have they noticed the impact on their teacher, but they've actually started having conversations which they'd never had before with that teacher. So you can only imagine the impact, therefore, on their learning and how comfortable and confident they feel in those classes. So greetings is a classic and not a hard thing to do and to try. Compliments is another way of sending stars. So we all like to be recognised for who we are and what we do well. In the program, we learn how to ensure compliments are sincere and also talk about the benefit of being more open to compliments. And so we really practice that as a group. We practice it regularly. Every day of the program, we have a star round where we give each other stars. And finally, appreciation. So how do you feel when people don't say thank you for something you've done? Think about that. We all want to be appreciated for the way we help and contribute to others. It could be a simple thank you or an action, so a gesture. So we recognise some days it's really hard to continually send stars, especially when we're not necessarily receiving them back. But persistence will pay off and it becomes a habit. And that's certainly a message that we give to our young people. So now I'm going to ask, and I'm wondering if you've shared in the chat, how many of you have you noticed stars or in the way of greetings or compliments from your young person since starting the program? Feel free to share that in the chat.
Yeah, we've had a few who've said they've received some stars and that they're loving it, which is wonderful.
That's great. Someone has shared that my son's not supposed to tell me what happens in the program stays in the program. Isn't that funny? Teenagers don't sometimes like to share, but don't worry, you're knowing what happens in the program, and sometimes it's just that gentle curiosity. But you can reassure your son that he is allowed to share as what he's comfortable to share. So now that you have had the concept explained, we encourage you to help along with your young person to create a star-filled environment. So persist consistently, acknowledge the stars you receive, and where possible, ignore the black holes. Sometimes tactical ignoring can be a really effective strategy when black holes come our way.
Okay, so confirmation bias. I guess, touched on this a little bit earlier as well. So it's a type of bias where we notice or look for behaviours or information that supports the beliefs that we have about somebody. So we all have biases. It's our brain's way of making it easier to process the large amounts of information that we receive every day. It's when it goes unchallenged, is that when we see the worst of humanity through prejudice and discrimination. So it's important to challenge it when our young people are developing habits. It's easy to miss subtle changes due to people's bias. Like I said before, you know, if your child is starting to send stars, embrace that, because it might be a change of behaviour instead of sort of looking back on past behaviours. It's okay to have immediate thoughts that are negative, as long as you challenge it. Check yourself. If your child is spending more time, you know, hanging out with you or maybe sucking up to you a little bit, is it that they are being annoying, or is it that they're actually trying to send stars, and is it deliberate? You know, when you come home and your child comes out and says, oh, you know, hi mum, how was your day? You know, and you might be questioning, so what do you want? Which is a really common response. But they, you know, we are teaching them those stars in our session, and we use them in every single session. So maybe embrace it. Maybe they're not asking for something. Maybe they are actually just wanting to, send you a star and start to change their way of communicating with you. And just when we're talking about confirmation bias, just keep in mind that you're not necessarily responsible for your first thought. It is just your lazy brain. but you are responsible for the thought that comes after that. So positive reinforcement is a key to shaping behaviour. So acknowledge it. Acknowledge the star that they send. Acknowledge that they might have done the dishes for you without being asked or made you a cup of tea. And then if you reward it and acknowledge it, it's going to become bigger and they're going to do it more often. So we encourage you to adopt a strength perspective. Focus on their strengths, not just their problems. Help your young person to recognise and affirm existing strengths and personal assets. This support will help them to immensely in this time of new learning and change, and it will help to for them to take those change on into the future and hopefully become habits, which is something that we also teach through the program as well.
I might just take this moment to acknowledge some of the lovely comments in the chat, Emma, which sort of really indicate that stars are being received very well amongst you. Someone has shared that, yes, I've received some stars, which is lovely. Someone else has said we've received appreciation stars and working on compliments. And someone else has shared they really noticed at our last family gathering, my son didn't spend the evening on the phone. He played cards with us and interacted, and we all noticed, which is fantastic. And this one here, these are really quite moving. My son knew I wasn't having a great night last night, and so he did the dishes for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and I'm assuming maybe some of the things that you're saying aren't maybe responses that you would have seen in the past. So I think that's beautiful change in your young people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing those.
So I guess as a parent, as you know, you ask your child how their day was. If it's anything like me, I don't get anything back. I might get a good, I might get a grunt. Certainly straight after school. Timing is a big thing in my house. They're very open to talking at the dinner table, but not so much straight after school. So for teenagers, it's there's so much going on with their changing brains and their developing brains, which means they don't necessarily they don't communicate the same way that adults communicate. So we just need to keep that in mind. And to have positive conversations with your young person is really useful to think about, as I said, when it is a good time. So as I say, in my house, my kids need a bit of a debrief at the dinner table, but after school, they just want to switch off, might do some homework, they might do what they need to do to sort of wind down for the day, and then they're really open at the dinner table. So it could also be going in a car. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you're in the car with your young person and they're more likely to open up to you when you are one-on-one together, as I say, in the car or going for a walk together. So once you get the timing right, there are many alternatives to ask the question, how was your day? And on your screen are a number of different alternatives to ask, how was your day? So, you know, it could be what made you smile today? You know, who did you eat lunch with today? What was the best part of your day? And try and pick out some of those positives and use some different questioning around that, because sometimes if you ask more of open-ended questions, you're more likely possibly to get a response from your young person. So throughout any conversations, whether they're short or long, persist and consider how you can praise your young person in those conversations. Send them stars now that you've watched Jack's video, and if you haven't and you have time to, it's a great video to watch. And just share with how much you've enjoyed chatting to them. You know, thanks for having that conversation. Thanks for sharing that with me. I've really enjoyed our time together. So we will also send you a copy of these alternatives in the post-webinar email. But yeah, just keep in mind there's some alternatives on how you can ask the dreaded question your child has about how was your day.
Lovely. And people have shared in the chat that, yes, some of those strategies they use themselves. I know the car ride home is a favourite with my son. It really works well, and it just being side by side and not sort of engaging, you know, face to face can be more comfortable for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So some take-home strategies for everybody. So recognise and encourage positive changes in behaviour and reputation of your young person. Consistently check in with yourself for cognitive bias and actively look for opportunities to give praise. So staff-filled environments persist consistently, and I know it can be really hard sometimes when you're receiving those black holes not to react, but where possible, acknowledge the stars you receive and try to ignore the black holes. And a star to yourself in those situations sometimes can be just to walk away from a black hole at the moment if you need to, because that can sort of be sending the stars to yourself as well. Be curious and show an interest in what your young person is learning, and notice their progress. So if you notice that you're receiving more stars or you're receiving more positive communication, let them know, because I'm sure that they would love that you're to know. And we will often ask them in our program, has anyone noticed any changes in you? So definitely let them know if you've noticed any progress. And a bonus strategy, pick your battles, play the long game, because you're not going to win all the battles with your young person. This visual represents some of the things that you're no doubt focusing on with your teenager at the moment. I know that I am. And picking your battles is probably advice that you've heard before. It's good advice because our teenagers' developing brain, it's only possible for them to focus on one or two things at a time. So day to day, think about what's most important and just focus on the positive guidance. Your positive influence will help to gradually shape their behaviour. You are the biggest influence on your child's life. So they're more likely, you know, not that it possibly feels like at the moment, but to listen to you, and, you know, they really appreciate your support.
Absolutely, Em. Okay, so you've heard about the personal leadership program in detail. However, your young person, having worked through the program, their engagement with youth opportunities doesn't stop there. So first of all, if we just have a look at this image on the left here, Community 360, and I mentioned that that's the work that I lead in Youth Ops. So this is the wraparound service to value add to the schools we work in by providing professional development for teachers, as well as developing a suite of parent workshops and resources that can support not only the Youth Ops graduate, but the whole family and the relationships within it. And in fact, I think in the chat, someone shared before that there should be an adult program that features some of these things. And I'm so glad that you think that. I've just come away from a workshop at a school with educators and support staff on looking at Decide to Be Happy and choosing that big decision. We also at Youth Opportunities have an adult program called Generation Thrive. So we have businesses and organisations signing up to do a very similar program, but at the adult level. If you'd like to know more about that, please do reach out and we can certainly send you the information. So down the bottom there, graduate engagement. Following graduation, we engage with young people for 2 years after the program ends. We keep in touch with students either via text or phone call, and we also offer Prosper workshops. So we offer those once per term in the schools where the personal leadership program is running on things like habit maintenance, managing stress, healthy relationships, and we really try to capture the needs of young people. So we make sure we connect with them to make sure that we're choosing topics that are going to really support them. This allows us to keep engaging with students and improve their long-term outcomes. There's also other great opportunities like alumni days. We've got 8 of our graduates attending the New Day Leadership Conference tomorrow, and they're actually presenting activities at the Adelaide Convention Centre. So it's really worth your young person, you know, monitoring that detail. You will also be contacted for these opportunities, so you can encourage them to opt in. And finally, scholarships. So students who have completed the personal leadership program and have graduated can apply for scholarships to support them in achieving their goals, especially when financial barriers make it difficult to do so. So they can apply for things like tutoring, careers guidance, potentially laptops or other equipment related to their learning, course fees, and a lot of students, you know, choose to get funding for driving lessons. These additional services help us achieve our bigger mission and vision, which is for all young people to have opportunities to thrive. And there are two types of scholarships. So I've mentioned one with smaller items, but once your young person gets older and closer to graduating from school, they may, if they meet the criteria, have access to tertiary scholarships. So being able to have scholarships to attend university or TAFE. So really worth you knowing about that. Again, you will receive information as their parent when those opportunities come up. No probs. So there's a slide up here now. You've attended this webinar. We're really thrilled at the attendance that we've got. And this is our second webinar. So we've got 2 throughout the term. Now, we've mentioned the teenage brain a few times tonight because we know how important it is for you to really build on your understanding of what is going on in that developing teenage brain. And therefore, you know, what does that mean around your teenager's behaviour? Maybe they're frustrating sometimes with their behaviour, but also really giving you some knowledge that will empower you to really build that closer connection with your young person. So we'd love to see you at this webinar. You can see it's in 2 weeks' time, and there's a QR code to register. And of course, that's in the newsletter as well. So hopefully by now, after our little chat, that you've used your smartphone to register. But please know that in a follow-up email, I will include this registration QR code again. And as I said, it's already in the newsletter.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. So we'll go to a really big thank you. And I've mentioned that's my direct email contact if you'd like to ask any questions that have come up around your role in all of this. And we really hope that you recognise how crucial your role is. It's not about knowing every layer of the program. You've just got a bit of a snapshot this evening, but it's actually just being able to use that same language with your young person, and just gently being curious. As I said earlier, they may not like to share everything about what they're learning. And in fact, there's some really deep reflection that happens. So it might be quite personal for them, but really just showing an interest. And as Emma has shared several times, really looking for blue, looking for those changes, that progress toward being a personal leader, and really praising them for those changes. All right. So before you head off, and we'll see if there's some questions in the chat there, Emma, I'm just going to put this little QR code up, and we would really appreciate you taking a couple of minutes just to provide some feedback through that MS form. We really want to make sure that these webinars hit the mark, and we would appreciate you providing that feedback so that we continually improve them and make sure we can include the information that's really going to support you to be the best parent you can be for your young person.
And I just want to say thanks everyone for your engagement in this webinar and for attending tonight. I know it can be tricky to find the time to attend webinars, so really grateful that you were here with us tonight. Yeah, we really appreciate having you all on board with us.
Absolutely. And hopefully you're pleasantly surprised that it can be very engaging. The way people engaged in the chat and even the emojis was really fantastic. Thank you for playing along and being part of the conversation through those mechanisms.
And hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar in a couple of weeks' time.
Absolutely.
Exploring about the teenage brain.